10 curious abilities in WoW's beta that didn't make it into vanilla WoW. You know what, actually? I kind of want to watch this one instead. Do you guys want to watch 10 vanilla WoW things that won't be in classic WoW? Or 10 abilities that didn't make it into vanilla WoW? Okay, alright, both. Alright, let's start with this one then, okay?
In this video, we'll go over 10 abilities that were in the classic WoW's beta, but did not make it to the live version of the game, or were added to the game much later on in WoW's history.
Wait, that guy's name was
And at
Maga.
number 10, we have Crusader Strike and Holy Strike. Now, I've already made a whole video about these two abilities.
Yeah,
and
we
why
watched
they
this.
were removed. So
This is really
I'll keep
funny.
it brief at this part. Basically, Crusader Strike was a red paladin ability that did damage and put a debuff on the target that increased your holy damage that would stack up to 5 times.
Yep.
And this ability had no cooldown, so it was an actual spammable ability that red paladins had access to.
Yep.
And Holy Strike was just like the warrior's heroic strike, except it did holy damage. Now, after I made my video on these two abilities, a fan then linked me an interview with Kevin Jordan on a podcast, who was one of the 3 original game designers on the Vanilla WoW team. And in that podcast, someone asked him why Crusader Strike and Holy Strike were removed from beta paladins.
It's too hard
And
for paladins.
I'll play you an audio clip of what his answer
too
to
hard
that
for them.
question was.
The early beta incarnation of the paladin was very much placeholder. A lot of the early classes, sort of before they hit, final testing, had a lot of placeholder abilities. Well, he needs buttons to push while he's running around, but we're not quite ready with their full systems. So a lot of people just had buttons to push, right? And that's exactly what those abilities were. And once the Seal and Judgment system came to light, we wanted that entire system to be sort of all-inclusive. And the previous strikes that weren't connected to that system no longer fit within that mold. So they would have felt really odd, next to all the other abilities.
It would feel weird for them to actually have abilities to use. I think a lot of ret paladins wouldn't really understand that, and so, they had to remove the abilities just for it to make sense for the players.
So basically, Crusader Strike and Holy Strike were just placeholder abilities. And they had planned on adding the Seal system, which Paladins eventually got the entire time. They just kind of added it very late in development, as the Seal system wasn't implemented until about 2 weeks before the game went live. So it was a very last second change with almost no testing at all. And it wasn't a very popular DPS system. And since this change was so last second, mobs in the old school Scarlet Monastery still used the old school's Crusader Strike and Holy Strike abilities.
That's actually really funny.
They were modeled after beta paladins.
It's pretty funny whenever trash mobs have more mechanical abilities than a ret paladin does. Trash mobs do more abilities.
And at number 9, we have Trip.
Trip?
Now, for some of the abilities I'm going to talk about in this video, I don't actually know which class they belong to specifically.
What the fuck?
So I might need to make an educated guess for 1 or 2 of them. And I'm pretty sure Trip was supposed to be a rogue ability. So what this ability does is on your next weapon swing, it would trip your target, do a little bit of damage, and then award you 1 combo point. What the trip actually did, it never actually said, but I assumed it was some kind of stun for like a second or so.
That's pretty interesting.
It didn't cost any energy.
That's actually
but
really
the fact
cool.
That it did give you a combo point
10 subs, man.
is a pretty good indicator that it's supposed to be a rogue ability. And I have a little bit more confirmation to that, as the ability has the exact same icon as the Hunter ability called Wing Clip.
Yeah.
And the name of that icon, when you look at it in the game files, is called Ability Rogue Trip.
Wow.
Which is a pretty clear indication that it was supposed to be a rogue ability.
Damn.
And it did make it into the game as an NPC ability for 2 mobs in the Hillsbrat Foothills and Silverpine Forest.
That's pretty cool.
Kind of like how there's mobs in the game who have the beta Paladin's Crusader Strike. Although there's not too much confirmation in patch notes that rogues had this ability, so it was most likely never actually given to them and just kind of intended to be given to them. And at number 8...
I feel like that probably would have been a little bit OP, you know what I mean? It's like rogues, how many stuns do they have? Now they also have a knockdown, and, they're going to stop you from casting again. Like, that probably would be a little bit OP, dude. Let's be real.
We have Thunderbolt. This was an early Shaman ability with a really unique and kind of overpowered effect.
Okay.
Because basically what it does is it literally allows you to throw your weapon at the target for nature damage, interrupt spell casting for 15 seconds, which is like 3 times longer than the
What?
average interrupt lockout, I might add, and then
What?
leave you unarmed the entire time this ability is airborne.
Oh my god.
Which seems kind of like Earth Shock a little bit.
What the fuck,
you know, it does
dude?
nature damage and interrupts, which is probably why
That
it was
is
never actually
insane.
given to shamans.
Yeah, I
There's
wonder
also
why.
a data mined item called the Tablet of Thunderbolt, which
Yeah?
is a class ability item that requires level 32,
Okay.
and has the effect of teaching a shaman the ability Thunderbolt. So this one has a pretty clear indication of which class it was meant for, and the ability is very similar to Meriden Stormbolt ability. So
Okay.
it seems like it could have easily been converted into a warrior ability as well, if they just...
That's what they should have done, dude. Imagine, like, I feel like if a warrior was able to use this ability, right, interrupting casting for 15 seconds, and they were disarmed, I feel like this probably could be a vanilla WoW ability. You know, it's like you disarm yourself to make some caster not able to do anything. I don't know. I feel like that's probably like, I could see this in vanilla WoW, right? I mean, you have fucking 40-second polymorphs, 40-second saps, all these other ridiculously fucking long CCs. So it's like a Thunderbolt like this, yeah, I could see it happening 100%.
removed the mana cost and made it interact with rage instead. But the ability honestly seemed kind of powerful with that super long interrupt, and shamans already had Earthshock as a really good interrupt, so they didn't really need Thunderbolt as well. So kind of makes sense why it was never actually added to the game. And also, just a little note, something I found while I was editing this video and putting the pictures together, the icon for Seal of Righteousness ability, which depicts a flying hammer, is known as Thunderbolt in the game files.
Wasn't that in
This seems
Warcraft
to be
3?
a trend amongst a lot of these abilities in the
I
beta,
think so.
never actually made into the game.
Because a lot of this
They
shit's
just
residual
reuse
from
the same
Warcraft 3.
icon over and over without
Maybe
changing
I'm wrong
the
about
name
that,
of
but I
the
feel like it
ability,
is.
and just keep whichever ability
Yeah,
it was
yeah, I
originally
thought so.
given to. And at number 7, we have Shadow Word Befuddle. This
No wonder they didn't put this in the game. Who the fuck wants to say befuddle? Like, Delicious Toxin, thanks for the 5 subs. I appreciate that. A word of darkness befuddles the enemy for 30 seconds, making casting much slower. Yeah, it's a befuddle. Befuddle them. Oh, casting befuddle. No, it's a stupid fucking name. That's why they didn't put it in the game. It's smart.
was supposed to be a priest ability that when cast on an enemy target would befuddle them for 30 seconds, making their
Befuddle.
spells cast much slower.
Yeah, it's
So
like Curse
it
of
seems
Tongues.
like it was supposed to be
Yeah.
a priest version of Curse of Tongues.
Yeah.
And the reason I know this was supposed to be a priest ability is the same reason I know Thunderbolt was supposed to be a shaman ability, as there's
Because
a
it's
codex in
fucking
the game
obvious.
files called Codex of Shadow Word Befuddle, which
What?
requires a priest class to use and will teach
Damn.
them level 1 Befuddle at level 24.
Damn,
It
dude, we need to
seems
find
like
out
it
where to
would have been
get
neat
those.
for priests to also have a Curse
That'd
of
be
Tongues,
great.
but overall, not the biggest loss in the world that they
Okay.
never actually gave it to
Shadow
priests.
Word Befuddle.
And at number 6, we have Mind Rot. This is another priest ability, which is very similar to Hunter's Viper Sting, in that it will put a dot on the target, which will drain mana every time it ticks instead of dealing damage.
Wow.
Except Mind Rot seemed to have lasted for 30 seconds, instead of the shorter 8 seconds of Viper Sting. And just like a lot
damn.
of abilities on this list, the reason I know it's a priest spell is because there's a codex in the game files that teaches this ability to priests at level 38. Now, as to why this was never added to the game,
What the fuck?
it's probably because priests already have another mana burn ability called Mana Burn. And it's reasonable to
Imagine if you had both, dude. You just like put Mind Rot on them and just start spamming mana burns, dude. Like, I would be pissed.
assume they didn't want to give priests 2 separate mana
Yeah.
burn abilities,
That'd
especially
be
one
fucking
in the
funny.
form of a dot, and then another in the form
That'd be
of a
so
spammable
fucking
cast.
funny, dude.
And a little note about the icon for Mind Rot. This icon is more commonly used for the Spell Lock ability that a Warlock's Pet Fellhunter has, and the icon in the game files is still known as Mind Rot. And at number 5, we have Holy Ward. This ability would give you an absorption shield that would only absorb holy damage, very similar to Shadow Ward, Frost Ward, etc. Lots of casters in Vanilla WoW had damage shields that only worked on one type of
Nobody
magic.
does holy damage.
Although
though.
there was this little
Yeah, well,
distinction
who the
about
fuck does
holy
that?
damage specifically in Vanilla WoW.
Who the fuck
in
does that,
players
dude?
could not get resistance to holy damage. It was the only type of damage which existed
Okay.
in the game as its own damaging type, that there was no gear that allowed you to get holy resistance. So it would make sense that they removed Holy Ward to kind of fit in line with the whole holy damage is the only damage that players can't resist mantra.
Because it doesn't happen a lot.
And this was a
Never
Warlock
happens, really.
ability. seeing as there's an item in the game files
it's very,
called
very
the
low and
Grimoire
negligible.
Holy Ward, which allows
Yeah, it's
warlocks
very
to
low.
train it at level 40. And since warlocks also had Shadow Ward in Vanilla WoW, it kind of made sense that they would also have Holy Ward as well,
Yeah.
seeing as mages had Frost and Fire Ward. But also kind of makes sense that they didn't give it to warlocks eventually, as this seems kind of weird that a shadow damaging spec would have protection from holy damage.
No, it doesn't make any
And
sense
then
at
in
all.
Legion, Holy Ward was added back to the game in the form of a PvP talent for Holy Priests.
Wait, what the
and
fuck,
it worked
really?
nothing like its beta version.
Wow,
and
okay.
instead kind of worked like Fear Ward, in that you placed it on a friendly target
Yeah.
and it would prevent the next CC effect, instead of just a fear like Fear Ward did.
That's
so
actually
it was
pretty
added
badass.
in the game as kind of a completely different ability, just sharing the same
I don't
name.
remember this at all.
Which leads me into the next item on this list. And at number 4, we have Seal of Righteousness.
What? I
Now,
thought
this
they had
ability
that.
did
Delicious
actually
Talks
make
with
it
the
into
5
Vanilla
more
WoW,
gifted subs. I
but the
appreciate
version
that.
that existed in
Thank
the
you, thank you,
beta
thank you.
was completely
you so
different
much.
to what it turned into in the live version of the game.
Okay.
That it's basically a different ability. Because what beta Seal of
Thanks for
Righteousness
$2
did was give a buff to a
Monty
weapon
will
for
get his
1
message.
minute, which increased the amount of damage you did to undead targets only. And this ability could be cast on other players, and also had no judgment interaction, because judgment didn't exist in the same form as it did
That's
when it went
fucking
live.
badass,
So,
dude.
this was a completely unique ability
That's
that
badass.
Blizzard removed, kept the name, and then created a new ability and
So
gave
it was
it
like
this
it was like
name,
a blessing
as what
almost.
Seal of Righteousness did in Vanilla WoW was added extra holy damage to your attacks, could not be cast on other players, and dealt holy damage
Dude,
if it was
that'd be
consumed
really
by
cool.
judgment. So,
I'm
in the
too-
live
yeah, it's
version
too
of
bad
the
it didn't
game,
happen.
Paladins had 3 abilities that only worked on undeads.
Yeah.
But they had 1 more in the beta, making
Wow.
them the ultimate anti-undead playable class. Although it makes sense why they just removed another one of their anti-undead abilities, because abilities that only work on undeads are useless in like 90% of the game.
Yeah.
And at number 3, we have Sleep. Funny enough, this ability was given to 2 classes in the beta of WoW, before being changed to basically
what, like
Hibernate
druids
and
and
given to
hunters?
druids. And what it did was...
I feel like a lot of these abilities were like residual things that they were going to do that were in Warcraft 3 and then just put them in WoW. And then after they looked at WoW and they looked at like the balancing for the game, they're like, you know what? This one doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
On a 1.5 second cast time with no cooldown, you could just put an enemy target to sleep for 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So, a pretty powerful
45
CC.
seconds.
And it was originally given to priests, as again, there's even a codex in the game files that show that it can be learned by a priest at level 6. But in the beta, they decided to move this ability over to mages, and it worked exactly the same way. And there's even a Tome of Sleep in the game files.
That's really
as
good.
it shows that mages could learn it at level 8.
That's
but then
really
in
good.
patch 0.8, still in the beta, Sleep was changed into Polymorph for mages. And then druids were
Oh.
given Hibernate in beta patch 0.12.
See, that's I think what this shit was, is that they had like these ideas and then they came up with better names and everything for this stuff, and then this is what happened. I think this actually makes a lot of sense.
Which is an ability that can put a target to sleep, but only works on beast and dragons.
Guys, log back in. Server
And at number 2, we have a weird ability called Ethereal Form, which is a 5-minute cooldown ability that makes the user...
This is another shaman ability. This was, I think, the Tauren chieftain or something like that could use this in Warcraft 3. This is the same fucking thing. They actually added this back into the game.
immune to physical damage, but unable to use physical abilities for 10 seconds. So, kind of like a Paladin's Blessing of Protection, full immunity to physical damage, but unable to attack.
Message me.
Or the old school version of it anyway, as I think the current version of Blessing of Protection does allow you to attack while it's on you.
Yeah, it changed
Anyways, it seems as if
pretty
Ethereal
OP.
Form was supposed to be a Shaman ability, as there's a tablet in the game files called the Tablet of Ethereal Form.
Yeah, clearly
And it
is.
shows that Shamans could learn this ability
Clearly.
at level 24. So it almost seems like the Shaman version of Blessing of Protection. And honestly, thematically, Ethereal Form seems like it makes more sense than Blessing of Protection for the kind of effect it provides with the downsides.
Okay.
Also, something interesting I found out while editing this video, Ethereal Form was added to the game in Legion in the form of a PvP talent for Shamans, and it functions very similar to how it did in the beta. Okay, and at number 1, we're just gonna have a whole bunch of other Shaman abilities, because when I first started making this video, I didn't actually know which classes a lot of these abilities came from, So I just put a lot of the Shaman ones at number 1 because there seemed to be a lot of them at the time, and then it ended up a couple of the other ones earlier on the list also happened to be Shaman abilities.
Okay.
But whatever. So first up we have Group Astral Recall, which on a 15-minute cooldown will send everyone in the caster's group back to their Hearthstone location. So it's kind of like a mass Hearthstone cast without activating the cooldown of your group's Hearthstones. And seems like an incredibly good ability, as the Hearthstone cooldown was 1 hour long in vanilla. And the ability was never actually given to Shamans, but funny enough,
oh my god, that would be insane.
This ability is known as Astral Recall Group in the game files.
Wow.
Despite the fact that the icon is used for a lot of other things.
Dude.
Next up we have Invisibility Totem, which is a totem you can summon that would give everyone in your group invisibility for 1 minute. Although, based on the wording of this ability, I assume it just worked while you were near the totem and didn't actually...
Bro, dude, Shamans were gonna be OP in vanilla. What the fuck, dude? They're just teleporting everybody around, going invincible, going invisible. Like, what the fuck?
They let you stay invisible outside of the vicinity of your totem.
This is crazy.
Now, this ability was never actually added to the game.
Yeah, it's
but
good.
Another Shaman totem was added later on in the beta, called Grace of Air Totem, which uses Invisibility Totem's icon. And in the game files, the icon for Grace of Air Totem is known as Invisibility Totem, which means Invisibility Totem was added to the game files first.
Wow.
Next up we have Shock, or Lightning Shock as it was called later on in the beta, which is very similar to the shock spells that Shamans eventually got in the live version of the game.
Wow.
Where they were all instant cast, at a 20-yard range, 6-second cooldown abilities that shared a 6-second cooldown between them. And they all did something different, whereas Shock has all of these features except it only just does nature damage, and has no indication that it shared a cooldown with other abilities.
Yeah, it's a useless fucking ability.
Which leads me to believe this was just the very first iteration of the Shock system they had in the game, and then they removed this one and then added in the 3 Shaman Shocks they eventually got.
Makes sense.
Or maybe this one was just an extra shock on top of the other 3.
Makes sense.
And next up we have Lightning Storm, which is an AoE lightning ability that you would cast on a targeted area and then just leave it alone. There are mods in the game who have an ability very similar to this, and the icon they use for Lightning Storm in the beta is also named Lightning Storm. Although I don't think any other players can actually use this icon, so it doesn't really matter like it does for the other ones I mentioned. And lastly, we have Molten Blast, which is a spammable fire-based damaging ability with no cooldown and a lower cast time than Lightning Bolt.
Wow.
And I guess it would make sense why they removed a second castable spell with no cooldown.
Yeah, it does make sense.
As the class didn't really need to have 2 of them.
Yeah.
And I assume they later incorporated this ability into the Lava Burst ability Shamans eventually got in Wrath of the Lich King. And unlike a lot of these abilities, Molten Blast was actually given to Shamans to test in the beta.
Oh, what's it gonna do?
And then it got removed in beta patch 0.8. Alright, and that's it for all of the abilities in the beta that didn't make it to
We will never know.
Or I guess, not all of them. There's still a lot more. I just chose a lot of the more interesting ones, and ones that I hadn't already covered in other videos.
Wait, you can make a water elemental then?
Choice few.
Oh my god!
If you have any other ideas for videos just like this one, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments.
Oh my god, dude, that's so badass. So, these shaman fucking abilities are so good that Delicious Toxin with the 5 more get the community subs. Thank you very much, Delicious Toxin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. These shaman abilities make me want to play a shaman. And they're not even in the game. They're so badass, man. They're so fucking cool. Like, oh my god. Griefing with the Astral Recall would be epic. Oh yeah. Invite somebody to your group. Yeah, is everybody ready? Okay, alright. Oh wait, guys, just a second. I forgot something. I've got a hearth back. And then you hearth everybody back. Like, see ya. Peace. You know, like, yeah, of course I'd do that. Like, anytime I was about to go somewhere, I'd just, teleport everybody back to the beginning. It's like, trust me, guys, like, whenever it comes to being a piece of shit, dude, I'm an expert. Okay, let's go down to here, and we'll just make a lap around again, and then we'll be able to do a strat, because that's what we wanted to do at the beginning, right? And that's what I got the group together for.